What you guys, got another computer build video here for you. This one is going to be on an AMD rig, and if you're looking to build your own computer, then this video could be helpful to you on building your own computer if you've never done it before. So let's take a look at some of the components. We've got a DVD rewriter. These are getting a bit obsolete nowadays, but this person still wanted one. And we've got HyperX Savage 2400 megahertz memory, pretty fast memory, and it's a really good price at the moment for that type of memory. Cooler Master Evo 212. This is a really decent heatsink, and also we're going with the Kingston 120 gigabyte solid state drive there. Also we've got a terabyte blue drive just to chuck in for a bit of storage. Windows 8.1 we're going to be using, and also we're going to be using the AMD X4, I think it's a 760K version, which is a pretty decent chip all round. It's an APU chip. We've got a 260X Sapphire graphics card because he's not really into playing that many games, but he still likes to play the odd game here and there. And we've gone for the Fatality ASRock motherboard, a really decent motherboard, the Killer series. It's a really decent board, this one. I'm pretty impressed with it. And also we've gone for the monitor here, and an EVGA 650 watt gold certified power supply. So let's take a look at the case we're going to be using in this build, but you can use whatever parts you want in your build, but this is just basically some of the parts we picked for our build. So let's take a look at the case that we're going to be using. It's a Corsair 300R case. Now this is an entry level case, but Corsair makes some awesome cases and they do some really high-end stuff as well. So if you're looking for something a little bit more upmarket, then by all means you can purchase one of those as well. Check out their website for more details. Here's some of the specs that you've got on this case. So let's take a look at how we're going to put in the power supply. This is what we're going to start with. This is an EVGA power supply, 650 watt gold, 80 plus gold certified. As you can see, you can have the fan facing upwards or downwards, and the label works both ways, which is a good touch from EVGA. It's a full modular power supply, and it should be ample of power for what we're going to be needing on this build. Okay, so we're just going to slot this into place, and then we're going to put in our 4 screws that come with the power supply. So these are our 4 screws. I'm just going to offer these up. Now they have got different mounting holes here in case you want the fan turning upwards, with the fan upwards. Some people prefer that, but this one's got a nice filter system on the bottom, so we've gone for the fan facing downwards. So we're going to offer these screws up and tighten them up. Now I'm doing this left-handed, so it's going to be a bit more difficult because I've got the camera in a way, so it's a bit fiddly, but you'll get the general idea. Now there's no need to over tighten these screws, you just need to have them to a reasonable tightness to hold the PSU in place. Now I would advise you, if you're buying your first computer components, is to get yourself a very good power supply. It's not so important about wattage really, people go on about that quite a lot, but as long as you've got something that's ample wattage to do what you need it to do, but make sure it's a very good power supply, either semi-modular or modular, which helps with cable management, and also something that's good certification, 80 plus bronze, gold or platinum. They're all different prices, but something with good Japanese capacitors in there. Okay, that's what you want to try to get to help protect your computer components. Let's move on to the CPU here. This is an Athlon CPU quad core processor. It's an X4 760K, and it's an APU type processor. It's got graphics on here. As you can see, this is the actual socket where we're going to be putting in our CPU. It's got a simple little arm there, you just lift that up. This is the actual heatsink that comes with a CPU. I don't use these standard heatsinks. You can do. It's got the same bracket system they've used for many years on these types of CPUs. Very old sort of technology, this stuff. But this is the actual CPU itself. I'm going to pull this out, as you can see here. Now the difference between an Intel CPU and an AMD, as you can see, we've got the triangle there in the corner, has got pins on the CPU, whereas Intel doesn't. It has it on the board, and you want to examine these pins to make sure they're not bent or damaged before you start to put this into the board. Okay, so have a good examination. You can see the gold triangle there, and you need to marry that up on the board to the right location. And you can see here there's a little nook inside this board area here, and that's the way the CPU is going to be sitting in there. Okay, So what you want to do is just offer this up to the actual board itself, and you can see the little notch that's on there with a gold triangle, and you can see the same thing on the board there. So try not to put your hands on the CPU itself unless you're going to give it a clean with some isopropanol. Pull the bar back and then just drop it into place. And once you get that into place, just give it a little pull down with the bar there, and that's it. It goes in a lot easier than the Intel ones. They seem to be a bit more resistance on those. Now this is the CPU cooler we're going to use. It's the Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master. Now this is a very good heatsink, as you will see in a second. Now this can mount many different sockets. As you can see on the back here, it tells you all the sockets that it supports, and that's a very good CPU cooler for this type of process. Now you can see the difference in the size here. This is the standard CPU cooler that comes with the AMD processor, and you can see the mammoth size of the Cooler Master one, and it's got lovely cooling on the bottom, copper here as you can see, which is a much better cooler and a bigger fan. So now we need to undo our brackets on this board here, because this is what we're going to use to mount. We need to put our own back plate on to mount this. So I'm just going to unscrew these, okay, these 4 screws. Now if you're not quite comfortable with this sort of stuff, then you can stick with the standard heatsink if you wish to start off with, but we're just going for a little bit more advanced method here by moving onto a custom CPU cooler. So just undo these and remove these, and keep these to one side and safe in case you ever want to sell the motherboard or put it back on. Now you can use, as I said, electrical screwdriver if you wish, if you find those better, but I prefer just a normal screwdriver. So moving on to the back here now, we're just going to remove the back plate here. As you can see, it should be just resting on there. Now we've removed the screws. So this is the heatsink we're going to be using. There's our back plate that we're going to be mounting on the back of our motherboard, and you can see the brackets here which come with this. It's a full kit here with a compound and all the screws and brackets and everything else, nuts and bolts that you may need to use this. You've also got some instructions here, and this is the actual heatsink itself. As you can see, it's a large fan which is going to add plenty of good cooling. You've got some copper on the bottom here, and also you can see the cable is pretty hefty in size, so just to make sure that you've got plenty of clearance if you're going to be using these types of custom heat sinks, okay? So make sure you've got plenty of clearance, and also clearance on the memory as well if you're using a high profile memory. So let's offer this up on the back here. You just offer this up and then push your bolt through, or depending on what type of motherboard and setup you're doing for your type of build, but this is an AMD one, so we're going to be using the brackets and bolts that they suggest. Just going to push these through. It's a bit fiddly with the camera in the way and trying to hold on to it and film it at the same time, but I'll give it my best shot here. And you just push those through. Now you need to put the nut onto the bottom, okay, and there's your nut. And then you just need to tighten this up, finger tight, and then use yourself a little adjustable spanner. So we'll just get that set up just right, like so. And again, you want to try and do these in a sort of diagonal motion here rather than working round. Just going to offer this one up and tighten this one up. Now again, we're just going to put these on as finger tight first, and then tighten these up with an adjustable. So I'll quickly put these other two on, and there you can see we've now got all 4 on there, and we're just going to tighten these up, okay. Now you don't want to go over tightening these, and start cracking the board and stuff like that. So you just want to get them to a point where you know they're nice and tight. Now this is the bracket that you need to use. Now this needs to be situated in certain different positions for different sockets. So ours is set to the right position, and this is the actual heatsink. We're going to remove the fan, which is removable. We can have it on either side, so we're just going to remove the fan so we can sit this onto the CPU itself. And we'll need to remove that so we can get the screws into the board here. Now make sure you remove the plastic part on the bottom as well. So we're just going to get the bracket now and line this up. Now it can only go on one way for this socket, so we need to make sure it's right. So I'm just checking the instructions here. As you can see, I'm on the left hand side there. I've got the instructions open, and you can see there's a little lug there, and you need to push this through until you get that set up just right, and it should sit in that little groove there, as you can see, and it'll only go in one way. And once we've done that, we can then remove the plastic part there and offer that up. Let's just remove this here. Now you can see small little grooves on there. Okay, you want to give that a clean with some isopropanol. Put on some compound. Now there was a slight bit too much here, but because of those grooves on the bottom of that copper there, I just wanted to make sure there was enough on there, because they're going to go into those grooves as well. Okay, so if it's completely smooth, you don't need as much, but because of those grooves, I just put that little bit extra on. Just tighten these 4 screws up here. And then once we've tightened these down, it's a bit fiddly with the camera in the way, but I'll try and tighten these up. Now you don't, again, you want to make sure that these are tight enough down to pull the actual heatsink down onto the CPU. Okay, so once you've got this straight, you want to tighten these right up. Now again, I wouldn't suggest you use electrical screwdriver here, just in case you over tighten them, and then you're going to end up damaging the board. So just put a bit of pressure on. You have to put some force down on this, and you want to make sure that this is on a nice hard surface. Now you see I've got the foam on the bottom of the motherboard there, just to protect any of the bottom of the board there, or any solder joints on the bottom of the board. We're just going to tighten this up. And there you go. As you can see, it's pretty high, so you're going to need some clearance there. And you can see there's like 3 positions on there, 1, 2 and 3, and this is set to the second position, which is the middle position here for this type of socket. Just keep going round until you find it to be pretty tight and it won't turn no more. You don't need to put too much force on it once it's got to its point there. One last check. Now we're going to offer up the fan again. Now again, you can have the fan facing this way or the other way, depending on which way you want to do it. We had it this way, and then the person whose machine it was wanted the fan on the other side, so I changed it around for him. But there was no difference in temperatures or anything like that. So we're just going to put the pin in here. You can see there's a 4-pin that goes into the CPU fan plug, as you can see here. Now this will only plug in one way. There's a little ridge on the back of this plug. You just push that in. And then once we've got these wrapped round, I'm going to get a little cable tie and tie those up. Now if you're wondering whether that was too much compound on there, you can see the actual CPU here. There was no compound oozing out there, so it was probably just the right amount for this CPU. So we're just going to get a little cable tie here, just to keep these nice and tidy, and I'll remove that label a little bit later on. So we're just going to tie these back like so, and then snip that off. Okay, so let's move on to some memory here. We're using the HyperX Savage memory. Now you can see here I've had to move the fan off a little bit so I can slot in the memory here, and you make sure that you've got compatible memory for that heatsink. You can check the website for compatibility. If you had a higher profile memory here, that wouldn't have slotted into place. Okay, rip jaws or anything like that probably wouldn't have fit there, okay, with this board and this configuration. So just bear that in mind when you're purchasing your memory. So here we have HyperX Savage, and you've got yourself a nice heat shield on here. Lovely design, low profile type memory. This is what this memory is. Its voltage is 1.65 volts. And you can see here 2400 megahertz, which is ample enough speed. Again, there's the little notch. You just have to marry that up to the board. You can always check the user manual to find out which slots you want to put them into. But generally this will be in dual channel mode with this red slots here. We're just going to click these into place, and that's that done. Next up is the motherboard risers. These were already in the case in their positions for this particular type of board. Only had to put in one screw. Need to put in the IO shield here, which is pretty straightforward. You're just going to slot that in and push it up at the back here where the IO shield area is. Make sure you get it up the right way, as you can see here, and it's got that little groove on it, and you just need to push it into place. Now sometimes these can be a bit fiddly to get in, but this one straight in, as you can see here, and it should look like that. Now once we've got this in, we need to offer up our motherboard. Again, this just drops into place, and that is a real nice motherboard, I must say. And you can see the height for the CPU cooler now. You've got some black screws here to screw this down into the case. And again, just offer this up and then screw them down. Again, I wouldn't use any type of electrical screwdriver for this type of stuff. These are so small screws, there's no need to use that type of stuff really, to be honest. Just a standard screwdriver is good enough. And that's what it should look like once you've got it all screwed down. And there's not much room up the back there, as you can see, for that for the water cooler. If you wanted to use one of those, you could probably use one with just one set of fans, but if you wanted to do push and pull, you wouldn't be able to get that in there. It would be hitting the memory and stuff. So we've got the fan facing down at the moment, but you can have it facing upwards as well, and then you could have two more fans up the top pulling it all out if you wish. Depending on which way you wanted to do it, you can test it both ways. It's totally interchangeable. So what we're going to do next is put our DVD-ROM drive in. Now again, these are pretty obsolete nowadays, but this person wanted one, so we're going to put one in. And you just pull out the little lugs and pull out the front plate, and then offer this up. Now this is a toolless case, so you just slot this in and then clip it into place. Now I wasn't a great fan of this this type of toolless design. There's many different types, but wasn't a fan of this one. Okay, so next up is just clip that into place. And once we've got this done, we can move on to our hard drives. Now we're going to put in a solid state drive and a terabyte drive in here, which should be ample for what this person wants to do. And we're using a blue 1 terabyte drive just for storage. Again, this is a toolless design, so you just use the clips, pull it out. So we'll start off with the 2.5 inch drive here. We're going to put 4 screws in that comes with the case here. Now you will need to remove that side little pin up the top there, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But put your 4 screws in. You don't want to over tighten these, and this should hold this into place. So this design comes with its own bay for a 2.5 inch and 3.5 inches, and you can have up to a 4, as you can see there, of either. So just screw these in like so. Now I went for it with the cables at the back, and you can see here on the side, you can see where I've pulled that pin out, and all you need to do on the right hand side of here, you can see there's this little pin, and you can pull it out, it goes in there, and you have to remove that to get the actual solid state drive in there, and you just clip that into place. Pretty straightforward. Now to put the 3.5 inch in, you don't need any screws. You can just offer the drive up, and you should see 2 little clips there. Push them into place with the little pins, and then bend that bit out, and then clip that into place. Pretty straightforward. Once you got that in, that's it, that's done, and you can just slot that in like so. Easy stuff. This is the graphics card we're going to be using. It's the Sapphire 260X. Now this is ample 2 GB of GDDR5. This is ample for what he wants. You've got your drivers inside here, as you can see. I normally get those off the website, and you've got your warranty thing here, and your manual, quick start guide, as you can see, and got a cable in here, which is what we're not going to be using this. But if you need one, you've got that cable in there, and you've also got your graphics card and your converter here, as you can see. If you don't support HDMI, you've got DVI to VGA there. This is the actual card itself. Quite a nice little card, really. To be honest, it performed pretty well, and it's only a small little card, but as you can see, it's got power to it here, and you can see the cooling here. And there's the size of the board. It's a pretty reasonable thickness on the PCB there. And you've got your connectors on the back here, your DVI and HDMI. You've got your cooling vent there as well. Now this is going to take up to 2 slots, so bear that in mind. But we've got 7 on this here, so we're just going to remove the 2 little expansion slots here. Now these come with thumb screws. I'm just going to loosen these up with a screwdriver. And once we've removed those, now I didn't really need to remove that top one. Should have been the second and the third one I needed to remove, but I'll replace that. So a bit of a mistake there, didn't check it, but that's okay, it's no big deal. We'll just remove those and slot that into place. Now again, you want to make sure that depending on what type of card you're going to be using, you need to take into account the space that you have. You can see there's a hard drive bay missing here, which means you can have up to full length graphics cards in this case, okay? But again, you're going to need to take into account your power supply if you're having a much higher end graphics card, and also if you're doing SLI or Crossfire, you need to make sure you've got enough power. So we're just going to screw these in, and to lock this in place using the thumb screws that we took off. Now keep all these little plates that you've removed, just in case you want to get rid of the case or anything like that. So we need to add power to this, as you can see here, and we'll add that in a little bit later on. So here we have our fully modular power supply. This is a 650 watt gold power supply. Now this is really decent. You can see all the cables here all blacked out, which is a real nice touch. And we're going to add this 24 pin in, and then push that through one of the cable management holes. Now I would have liked to see these cable management holes with some covers on them, so you can't see the cables through the back of it. But it's only a small little gripe really. It is an entry-level case, but it would have been nice to have that feature on there to hide the cabling a little bit better. So I'm going to do a little bit of cable management here. You can see we come through here and plug that 24 pin into the board now. Now we're going to do the VGA connector for the card, and you can see this power supply comes with its own, and EVGA have their own little cable ties with these as well. As you can see, we're just going to plug this in. Now I won't show the whole process of this cable management, it's going to be too lengthy, but we'll come round the back here and come through the bottom to plug that in. You can't see much because my arm's in the way, and but you'll get the end result when I finish the video. So we'll just pull this through and then plug that into VGA 1. And the good thing about modular power supplies again is the amount of cables that you need to use. It keeps the case looking nice and tidy. You don't need to have a ton of cables that you might not be using that are all inside the case to make it look scruffy. So here we're just going to put in some SATA cables for the solid state drive and the hard drive. And it may look a bit daunting at first when you see all these cables, but once you've done a few builds, it's pretty easy to do. So we'll do a bit of tidying up here with some cables in a second, but we're just going to plug in another SATA cable for the 1 terabyte drive here. Now we also need to have power to these, which we'll add in a little bit later on. So I'm just trying to tuck these SATA cables through the cable management hole so we can get it to the motherboard. Now also again here we're just going to do the DVD-ROM drive here, put the SATA cable in and pull that straight down. Bit of power. Again, these are all modular cables, so you don't always need to put every single cable in. You can just put in what you need. Just going to put a bit of power in the back of this, like so. And now we need to just offer this up to the actual power supply and push that in to where it says SATA. Now put a bit of power in the back of the hard drives. And again, this bit takes a bit of time, so you want to take your time here to get all your cables routed the way you want to do it so it's nice and tidy. Now remember, you're not going to see it all around the back of the case, so it doesn't really matter if it looks a bit of a mess there. But as long as it looks tidy inside the case, that's what you're after, and get good airflow. Now we're using one cable here for the 2 hard drives, that's just fine. Just make sure we push those down so we can get the side panel on. A little bit of tidying up here, but pretty much we're getting there now. We're coming towards the end of our build. So here we need to put in our power cables here, and you can see this is pretty much the same for all the boards here. You've got your HD LED and also PLED and power button and reset button. These are your front cables that come with your case. You need to plug all these in, and this will have this inside your motherboard manual, but once you've done this a few times you'll pretty much know how easy it is. It's pretty straightforward. You see the plus and the minus. The plus is the one with a triangle, and you just plug that in like so. And that's the end result once you've started plugging those in. Just read your manual, pretty straightforward stuff. So there's the back of the case. Now you're not going to see any of this stuff. This is going to be hidden around the back. You can put some cable ties on and tie this all up to make it look a bit more tidier. But in general, that's how you want it roughly looking. Now you're going to see a few of the cables through the back because we haven't got no covers on the cable management holes, and this is the look from the front here. As you can see, the fan's now been rotated because that's how they requested it, and we've got all the cables going out there round the back. So now we've got the back panel on, and this is the look of what it looks like with the back panel on. And you can see here we've got all the cables nicely tied back inside the case with the EVGA cable ties that come with the power supply. Also, we've got all our SATA cables plugged in here. Now, I would have liked to see some covers here, as I said, but it looked tidier. But you can see it's pretty clean looking, and there isn't much room there, as you can see. So if I did have the fan round the other way, you still wouldn't be able to do a push and pull on the H100 or H110. It would be too tight. You can have one of those if you're just going to have the 2 sets of fans on there. So you could have one of those rads on there if you wish. But as you can see, pretty tidy build, and it's not too bad. Plenty of room for upgradability in there, as you can see. And then we'll have a quick look at the back of the case. Now we can add in a few more fans at a later date, but at the moment that's exactly what they wanted, so that's what they've got. And all in all, it would have been nice to see black screws there, I suppose, on the back of that PSU there. Just a small little gripe, but other than that, it looks pretty tidy. So I think we're going to wrap this one up. That's the build series for this one. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. Give it a go yourself. My name is Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. If you enjoy these videos, guys, then hit the like button. Also hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up to date when I upload new videos. So if you've got any problems with your computers, you can always head over to the forums and we'll get you sorted out over there. So thanks again for watching. Bye for now.